Conservative.
Christian. Mother. Wife.
Air Force veteran.
Gun rights advocate.
This is Stacy on the Right. Here's your host, Stacy Washington.
Thank you for being with us tonight. We have an amazing hour 3 lined up for you. And you're live and direct with it right now. Don't forget to follow me, Stacy on the Right, on X.com and Instagram. The very best of the best. We'll be getting to our guest in just a moment. We went out of last hour and we were listening to some sound from border czar Tom Homan. We also talked a little bit earlier in the show about fraud and about the impact that it has on not just Americans, but on people who are coming into the country lawfully. They're trying to immigrate in. And then what ends up happening is they're defrauding the immigration system by lying about whether or not they've ever been convicted. So in addition to that, there is some new fraud worldwide that's going on. And when I say new, it's our awareness of just how bad things have gotten fraud-wise that has caused the furor. And I'm glad the attention is being paid to it. And so you have FBI Director Kash Patel on Fox News. He joined Kayleigh McEnany to talk about the fraud fight that the FBI is taking on worldwide.
While there's epic levels of fraud going on, an epidemic that President Trump and J.D. Vance is leading the charge on the anti-fraud task force here domestically in the United States with agencies like the FBI and state and local partners. Last summer, we took the initiative to go overseas and attack the compounds and literally scuttle the centers and cities they were building overseas in the Middle East and elsewhere in Southeast Asia. We've freed thousands of trafficked workers, Kayleigh. We've arrested and charged hundreds of individuals for $8 billion, as you said, just overseas. Those individuals were targeting our senior citizens.
So the targeting of senior citizens is actually a multi-billion-dollar industry worldwide. People are making millions of dollars robbing senior citizens by telling them that their grandchild has been kidnapped, or that they've won money, or that they have an opportunity for an amazing investment opportunity. You've invested in so-and-so, or your bank is such and such. With a very minimal amount of information, they gain these people's trust and then usually rob them blind. And so there is going to be a reckoning, and it is so overdue. And I'm glad that Kash Patel's driving that. Really good to see. We heard from Stephen A. He was railing against President Trump being a part of the NBA Finals. How about House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries? He had to slam President Trump because he felt like his appearance was political theater.
So I've had a few things to say about Donald Trump going to the Knicks game. And, at this point, it's game day. And I think Knicks fans just want to enjoy Game 3, the first home game that we've had in 27 years. But it also is not clear to me that Donald Trump is a big Knicks fan. I mean, does this guy even know the difference between Karl Rove and Karl Anthony Towns? I don't think so. He's just injecting himself into the NBA Finals because he always has to bring the MAGA circus into town.
Okay. Oh, the MAGA circuit. So how about he just enjoys basketball and the Knicks owner invited him? So I'm sure he had other things to do, and I'm sure he's an individual who has a amazing amount of invitations. He is always wanted at events, especially MAGA events. He gets more invitations than he can respond to. And the Knicks owner invited him to the game tonight. That's the reason he's there, guys. It has nothing to do with MAGA. Also, President Trump is a Knicks fan. Like he is an actual Knicks fan. So I kind of wish this wasn't as like nasty as it is, because it's detracting away from the game. Real fans are just super glad that he likes it. So when Trump was on the Jumbotron, some of the crowd chanted USA, USA. And also, just in case you're wondering, online you can find a 20-year-old flashback. President Trump, this is regular Trump. This is way back in the day. You can tell it's same uniform, suit, tie. The tie is purple. He's there with Melania. She's got on a white coat. And this is like way back in the day. He went to the game. It was 1991. President Trump at the game. So, of course, there were some nasty signs, you know, go Knicks, F Trump. But there's a mashup of pictures of Trump before he was ever president. Here he is in a blue tie, the classic Democrat blue. There he is in a gold tie. There he is at the game with Marla Maples, and Marla is rocking the big hair, the big 1980s hair. Her hair is teased and curled with a curling iron to within an inch of its life. She looks amazing. She was always beautiful. She's always beautiful. There's a picture of him sitting next to Melania. Melania in jeans and heels. Getty Images. James Devaney took that picture. She's rocking the heels, jeans, a cream-colored cashmere turtleneck, and a tan blazer, looking fantastic. Trump's coordinating with her with a gold tie. And there he is on the basketball court. I guess he's playing a little one-on-one. There he is with oh my gosh. There he is with John F. Kennedy Jr. He has his hat on to the back. So he's been a Knicks fan, guys. No need to get all our underwear all up in a bunch. We're going to be fine. We're going to be fine, guys. He went to the game. Nothing we can do about it. Let's enjoy our lives. All right, welcoming into the show, John Calce, chairman, founder, and CEO of America First Refining. You can find out more by going to americafirstrefining.com. John, welcome in.
Thank you so much. Good evening.
Good evening. So we have a little bit of a drop in gas prices over the past 2 weeks. It's very exciting.
Yeah, it's come down, 30 to 50 cents, depending upon where you're in the country. Some places more, some places less.
So what's driving that?
Well, typically gas prices go up around Memorial Day. If you look historically, they tend to creep up because the summer driving season is starting. At the same time, refiners make different blends of gasoline depending upon the season, because gasoline is blended from various components. And as the ambient temperature gets warmer, they have to adjust that blend. So typically there's a little bit of a supply crunch around Memorial Day because they're switching from the winter blend to the summer blend. And then you compound that with an increase in driving, typically by people vacation on Memorial Day. And then if you look again, typically in years past, prices come off post-Memorial Day. That was exacerbated this year because prices went up more than usual because of the conflict leading up to the Memorial Day with the Strait of Hormuz closure. And now we've had glimmers of hope for peace, and crude prices have come off about $20.
Okay, so that's an excellent breakdown. But for Americans who are hoping for more, what are your expectations for over the summer? Because normally, as you mentioned, the prices go up. Is there any chance they go down a little bit?
At this point, it really comes down to what happens in the Middle East. The American refining complex is in great shape, where our refiners are operating at 90+% capacity. We are well supplied with crude here. So in general, we're in pretty good shape. I would say California may be a little bit of an outlier because they import about 70% of their gasoline from overseas, and Asia is pretty tight. But I think if you see continued peace movement in the Middle East and you see a greater flow of oil, you'll see prices come down pretty quickly.
So you run America First Refinery. this is something that we are very interested here at Stacy on the Right Show. We're into energy production. We're into the fossil fuels, as people like to call them. And you're actually not just refining, but you're saying you're doing so under the banner of America First. So we're very interested. Tell us more about your company and what you're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. So we are the first American refinery in 50 years. So that's where the name really comes from. Obviously, we believe in putting American energy first, the American people first. What we realized over a decade ago was that the U.S. refining complex it's been improved, but hasn't been redesigned since the 70s. And of course, as a follower of the American energy revolution over the last decade and a half or so, you've seen what we call the shale revolution or the fracking revolution take place. One of the effects of that is shale oil, especially the oil produced in West Texas, doesn't really fit the U.S. refining design spec. So the typical refineries on the U.S. Gulf Coast or even on the East Coast or California are designed around what we call a heavier barrel, meaning it's a less viscous barrel that typically you find in Canada or Mexico or overseas. If you think back to 2010, we didn't make much oil in this country. But with the advent of unlocking the shales, we began producing a lot of oil. But a significant part of that oil is what we call very light, meaning it doesn't fit U.S. refineries. That's why today we export 5 million barrels a day of crude oil and import 9. We import 9 million barrels of heavy crude, and we export 5 million barrels of our very light shale. So our refinery is the first American refinery designed to process 100% American shale oil. So that's where we got our name.
Those are some great statistics. That's very exciting. Okay, because I love to hear about new coal refineries that open, new mining, anything that makes use of our prodigious natural resources, of which our country is so blessed. There are some countries that don't have even a tenth of what we have in natural resources, and so we have to really, we have to use what we have. And we have to be very savvy about not just extracting it, but making the most out of it. And a lot of other countries, they love to buy from us, which is why oil refinery is so important. Talk to us a little bit about the future. You opened a refinery. That's a feat unto itself. The regulatory hurdles, I can't even imagine what you went through there. And so what else? What else is on the horizon?
Well, we haven't opened it yet. We permitted it. We obtained a partner to commercialize it that agreed to purchase all of our product for the next 20 years. That product will be sold into the Gulf Coast market. So most of it, if not all of it, will stay here in the U.S. And we will be operational in 2029. So we're going to spend the next 2.5, 3 years building this thing. We'll spend about $4 billion. And then by 2029, we expect the refinery to be refining American oil. These things aren't easy to put together, as you indicated.
Yeah, and that's why I asked you about that, because I want you to, as you just did, explain how this happens, why the process is so onerous, what that's about. As you're doing that, it's helping to crystallize in the minds of our listeners why that's ludicrous. It is ludicrous that you would be talking about this tonight in the year of our Lord 2026 and opening it in 2029 in America.
Well, it'll be more ludicrous when I tell you I started this in 2014.
Oh, my gosh.
So I came up with the idea in 2014. It took me about 1.5 years to figure out where I wanted to put it in the port of Brownsville. And the reason is because Brownsville is a deep water port. It's on the Gulf of America. And it's the last non-industrial port, although it's industrializing very quickly now. But at the time, it was a non-industrial port. Why that was important is when you permit a large industrial site, the EPA and in Texas, what's called the TCEQ, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, looks at the existing emissions in the area. So you have to clear the hurdles on that. So what we did is we half-engineered our project so we could project our emissions. We then submitted all those reports to the EPA and TCEQ. They went through all those reports, and this kind of is going from 2015 to 2020. This is 5 years of back and forth. By 2020, the EPA agreed that we were inside all the compliance limits for all the various tests with our plan, and then they send it back to the TCEQ. And at that point, we had the option to start trying to build the thing with a chance of getting sued, or open ourselves up to what's called a public comment period, which we did. That, in essence, we sued ourselves. We knew we were going to get pushback from all the various groups you'd expect. And that took us from 2020 until 2022, where we were in court fighting various groups about the right to our permit. So finally in 2022, after 7 years of working on this, we got to the point where we had a permit we could then raise money around and begin to find a commercial relationship. So up until 2022, it was just me and about 3 or 4 other guys, and we'd put all the money in the project. And then we found some outside investors in 2022 and 23. We began talking with some large buyers and sellers of refined products. And by the summer of 2025, we were in negotiations with a couple of the large groups. And we finally finished that negotiation in the first part of this year. And away we go now. So that's how you spend 12 years of your life trying to build a refinery.
Well, I'll tell you, that is so interesting to hear about. I feel like as you were talking there, it felt like one of the chapters out of President Trump's book, Art of the Deal, where he talks about how he put deals together in New York, and it took years and years. He would be working on one deal for, 10 years before they would finish the project, or even sometimes it would take years just to break ground. And it just demonstrates how great things get done. It takes a lot of dedication, and you just have to be willing to stick to it, and you just hang in there. And part of that is because you're operating, you were talking about, raising all of that money and getting those people to come together to make this project happen. And that's elite work. But there's also, there's two sides to that coin. Yes, it's elite work and it takes a while. Anything great like that is going to take a bit. But then there's the other side of it, which is the regulatory burden. And you're speaking to that in a way that, it makes it clear why we have a backlog in energy generation. Power generation cannot occur with the onerous regulations that we're currently burdened with. That has to change.
Oh, I agree with that entirely. And I think what the Trump administration is doing in fast tracking a lot of these things, if we were to start today, I don't think it would take quite as long. But remember, too, we were a small outfit, not a big company. Big companies don't take these kind of risks, right? People ask, how did you guys do this and not Exxon? And I always say, well, why did Microsoft not invent Google, right, or Facebook? It just takes a different kind of mindset. But I think what you're seeing today in the coal market, especially, and the nuclear market, where you've got people moving very quickly on permitting, I think that you're starting to see that really bear fruit, and the Trump administration should be commended for that. Where they helped us out quite a bit was making it cool. I hate to say cool, but good to invest in America again. People had a sense overseas that we had a business climate here that is friendly for investment, and there's stability. We've got a pretty decent tax code, hopefully, that's going to stay this way for a while, and people want to invest in America, as you pointed out earlier. Also, we've got tremendous natural resources. We've got a great workforce. We have great engineers. And by the way, our market's pretty good, too. So, the Trump administration has done an amazing job of highlighting all of those things in addition to trying to cut the regulatory burden.
I'm glad of it. And I hope that the changes that he's made can persist and, go on in perpetuity, not just be dependent upon President Trump being there. Unfortunately, we do have to start to plan our lives out, not just politically, but policy-wise, in a post-Trump era. And the lessons that he's taught all of the politicians, because he's not one, on how to make America more business-friendly, that's the new playbook, right? It's not noise. It's the actual signal that we need to respond to going forward in the GOP, because it makes people's lives better. It makes business better to do in America. It makes it easier. And it sets us up for future like problem solving, because we're always going to have problems with power generation because we're a high society. It's not just, we're not basic like the Europeans with their 3 bedrooms and 1.5 baths. We're over here in the tens of thousands of square feet. We got the jets. Now there's some kind of Jetsons flying car thing that I just saw that I'm telling you, we're doing the most over here. We need a lot of power generation for that. So I'm so glad that you're going to be refining more oil. We have to have more oil. More oil has to be refined. If you're listening to me and you're like, stop whining and listen to me. We need more oil refining. That's what John Calce is doing. Maybe you should do it too. Do you have money? Do you have a brain? Do you have a lot of stick-to-itiveness? Maybe you should open a refinery. Follow John. Maybe he'll show you how. Maybe he'll give you a quick TED Talk. He gave you the Cliff's Notes tonight on the show. John, close us out. Anything else you'd like to add? So good to have you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, and look, I truly think this is a bipartisan issue, right? I mean, I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania where, only about half of the kids in my class went to college. We had ag classes, right? And so when you look at the kids I went to school with, high prices hurt the working people the most. And high prices in gasoline and diesel fuel are really hurtful. And I'm hopeful that with what we've seen in the last little bit, that it's a bipartisan issue and both sides realize there's a pathway for everyone to profit in America, for everyone to progress. And the reality is fossil fuels and refined products are what drive our society. So thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it and telling a little bit of my story. Happy to be on anytime. Thank you so much, Stacy.
All right. Glad to have you. Have a wonderful evening. And thanks for staying up late with us here on SiriusXM.